second chances. And that's okay. You know it going into it. Tyrone did. I don't know if there's ever been another one fired that has gotten another opportunity at the college level. But every minority coach knows that going into it.
And the statistics seem to support his claim. 41 black FBS head coaches since 1979. Tyrone Willingham is the only black head coach to be hired at a FBS school after being let go by another FBS school. 15 black FBS head coaches this season, second most in one season since 1979. And again, 2 black FBS head coaches have been let go this month. Now, the question is, Stephen A., again, according to these stats, they seem to support his claim. Why don't African-American coaches seem to get a second chance?
African-American head coaches don't seem to get a second chance in large part because of the leadership positions that exist at football bowl subdivision schools, FBS schools. Skip Bayless, I have in front of me the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sports. I'm quite sure you're incredibly familiar with that. The great Dr. Richard Lapchick, he's the director of it. I've been a keynote speaker there on an occasion or two, and I'll come back anytime that man wants me to. What a great man he is. He does these statistics every single year. Let me read something to you, Skip Bayless. This is a quote from Dr. Richard Lapchick. The fact is that 90.8% of our presidents at universities are white, 90.8%. 88.3% of our athletic directors are white. 100% of our conference commissioners are white. If you don't have diversity in leadership positions, the leash, excuse my expression, is going to be relatively short. Now, I understand those out there who may be a bit sensitive to us even broaching this subject, because when they think about John Embry and what the choked up John Embry was talking about after being relieved of his duties by Colorado on Sunday night, they're going to point to the fact that he lost by an average score of 48-17, that he finished 1-11 in the Pac-12, which was the worst in the program's 123-year history. And they're also going to point to the fact that he didn't have a home win either, which was the first time that happened at the school since 1920. So you listen to his argument, and let's be clear. What he's talking about is not whether or not he did a good job. He's talking about the leash that he's had because he was relieved of his duties after 2 years, when his predecessor, Dan Hawkins, had 5 losing seasons in 5 years. So why was he given 5 years, but I'm only given 2? That's what he's saying. And what he's saying is a guy like Tyrone Willingham, which is the only African-American coach in college football history to have received a second chance as a head coach, okay? No other black coach has ever received that. That's alarming, particularly when you consider the abundance of African-American athletes that grace these universities across the American landscape. If you had a bunch of white athletes and you didn't have a bunch of black athletes, as bad as it would be, at least it would be to some degree comprehensible. But when you have such a plethora of African-American athletes, but such a paucity of African-American coaches, and virtually no black leadership, then it speaks to what's going on at these colleges, because people don't realize this. We love the NBA, we love Major League Baseball and all this stuff. There's one sport that lags behind the NFL, and that is college football. College football is the second most popular sport in this nation. It is a big-time, multi-billion-dollar industry, okay? But in far more cases than we want to acknowledge, blacks ain't allowed. Now, Dr. Lapchick acknowledges that progress has been made, because he talked about 19, all-time high, 19 head coaches of color, including 17 African-American head coaches. This is as of November 8th, 2011. Obviously, Embry's gone now, whatever. We'll see what the number is. But it was 17 as of last year. Skip, there's over 330 colleges and universities. You talk about 17 in 2012. I'm sorry. Those numbers are not accidental. They're incredibly alarming. The only other point that I want to make to you, Skip, is this. Having said everything that I just said, I refuse to absolve the African American community in all of this as well. On far too many occasions, we have people talking about how there needs to be more black representation. Yet when you have these head coaches, you have to perform for them. Even on the NFL level, we saw guys, just singing the song about Romeo Crennel. He needed to stay with the Kansas City Chiefs. So they keep him and they sign him to an extension. They take the interim tag away. And what do? You follow up by going 1-10 for him this year. You see what I'm saying? Those kind of things, we have an obligation. Because my last point is this, Skip, I work here at ESPN. We have a great guy by the name of Rob King, who's a high-ranking African-American within this company. We've got Leon Carter for ESPN New York. We've got my man Dave Roberts in ESPN New York. You know what I try to do for them? Perform. Because the best thing that I can do to support them is go out there and get the job done.
I agree.
And so I'm not completely absolving African-Americans in all of this in any way. But these numbers are alarming and they are factual.
Well said. Let me go in a couple of directions in response.
Yes, sir.
Let's get this straight. In 33 years, the last 33 years, there have been 41 black coaches in what we now call FBS.
Right.
41 in 33 years?
Embarrassing.
Are you kidding me?
Embarrassing.
And we only have the stats up to 2 years ago, but in Division I college football, it was 46% of the players were black.
That's right.
It's not up to the NBA level,
right.
college basketball
but
levels, but still, nearly half. The shame is that there's no Rooney Rule in college football. The Rooney Rule in pro football, thanks to my man John Wooten, who heads that committee.
That's right.
You know John from Philadelphia. He's a good man.
Yes, he is.
The Rooney Rule has worked in pro football. It doesn't make an owner hire a minority coach, but it gets minority interviews. It forces several minority interviews per opening to where the minority candidate gets on the map through his interviews, through getting mentioned through the media. And all of a sudden, oh, that guy, he's a hot young coach. Oh, maybe I should look at him next time. He doesn't, opportunity exists.
Yeah.
Now, we have to, like 41 have gotten chances. And then, Stephen A., if they were successful, they would have kept their job. And if they were really successful, they would have gotten hired again. So the fact is, the sad fact is, they haven't been good enough to keep their jobs. Of those, even Ty Willingham, he just, in the end, he didn't get it done. Okay, silver lining, right now, this is the positive side of this. Think of these coaches, these black head coaches in college football right now. My school, Vanderbilt, James Franklin, just went 8-4. He went 5-3 in the SEC. Unheard of. You ridiculed me, laughed at me on opening night. Remember that? They lost to South Carolina at home, and I said they got robbed, and you said, well, who have they ever beaten? Well, now they should have won 6 SEC games because they should have beaten South Carolina. That's pretty good for James Franklin. Trust me, if in 2 years he falls on his face and gets fired, he'll get another job because he can recruit and he can coach. And so now we got Charlie Strong at Louisville, and they're at 9-2 right now, and he's rumored to be the next coach at, who knows? He could be at Auburn, he could be at Tennessee. I don't know. He's in the mix for he's going to get a bigger job than even Louisville is, okay? And let me finish. Sure. Kevin Sumlin, David Shaw, respectively at A&M and Stanford.
That's right.
They got top 10 teams right now.
That's right.
You don't think they'll get a second shot somewhere else? And that coach, the black coach at Kent State, I don't know much about him, but his team's ranked 17th and could wind up in a BCS bowl. You don't think he might get another shot if he ultimately gets fired or wants to move on from Kent State?
I'm very serious when I say this, but with affection. It's possible you may be being naive in all of this, because what you just did was outline a case for them getting another job. I'm giving you fact as to, from a historical perspective, what hasn't happened.
Sure.
And so what I'm saying to you is, we got to remember, I'm talking to my man, my brother from another mother right across from me, who is about fairness. What we're saying about the NCAA is that it doesn't exist. You have a coach that's crying in front of national television cameras because he's giving you insight to a fraternity that collaborates with one another and engages in dialogue on an annual basis. Don't even get me started with the Black Coaches Association and the battles that they fight on a daily basis. Why What is the need for all of this? You know what the need for all of this? The flagrant level of unfairness that has existed when it has pertained to college football. And then, Skip, here's the other thing, the ancillary issues that take place on the periphery when you think about things. You've got other coaches, you got other leagues rather, whether it's the NFL, whether it's the NBA, you know, whether it's Major League Baseball, you know, with you know, different kind of set of problems there. Yeah. But my point is, when those problems are addressed, do you know there are some people in the white community that have the unmitigated gall to sit there and complain about reverse discrimination? So in other words, the years, the decades, the centuries of segregation, of racial injustice that has taken place, that has permeated this country in such a way that has become a signature in part about this country, okay? You actually have these people that want to sit there and gloss over that and say, oh, times have changed. What difference does it make now? We can't change the past. Why sit there and give an unfair advantage to somebody else? Because you had a head start that was about decades, if not centuries ago. But they don't get that. So what I'm saying is, understand, whether it's you or an abundance of people that I'm honored to be working with here, where you may feel differently, there is a society out there that African Americans, male and female, run across every day. I'm with you. Where that prejudice is palpable, it is evident, in some cases flagrant, and almost always unapologetic. Okay. And that is the problem. That is what the coach has alluded to. His record doesn't support that. I get that. Right. There's no doubt. And the actions of some people in subordinate positions that have African Americans in leadership positions and don't perform for them, they can't make that argument either. But there are other places where that argument can be made. And it almost never is, because it's taboo to talk about it. And that's what goes on here with college football, because they make money.
Let's get down to the psychology of why 41 and 33 years. Okay. I'm simplifying, oversimplifying here, but in the end, basketball, college basketball, is a student's game. In the end, college football is the alumni's game. Okay. Power broker game. Right. Big money. Right. Backed by major donors. In the end, over the century, for the most part, the white boosters who give the most money, they want to socialize with the head coach. Right. So I'm getting into the psychology. This can be in the South or in the North or the East or the West. It can be anywhere. No problem. In the end, most of those heavy hitters, they want to play golf. They'd rather play golf with a white guy. You know, if they want to take the wives out to the club on Saturday, not the club, the country club. The country club. Not that club. The country club. If they want to go to the country club, they'd probably rather, if they had their choice, they'd probably rather go with the white head coach. They want to rub elbows with the white head coach. Not everywhere, but that's been the general issue facing the college black coach getting hired as the head coach. Right. Now,
it's a level of comfort.
Sitting on the other side, not disagreeing with anything else you say. I appreciate you telling me that, because that gives me some insight to what their mindset may be. But let me share with you the African American perspective. You don't want us in leadership positions. You don't trust us to be leaders of young men, particularly if 46% are black. What are the other 54%? And what exactly is it that you're trying to say? Because when we see somebody like Gene Chizik at Auburn, just fired, Cam Newton delivered him a national championship. Are we trying to say that Turner Gill, the former coach at Buffalo, could not deliver a championship with Cam Newton had he been to Auburn? I'm not saying that we know. We don't know. Don't get me wrong, Skip. I'm not saying that I know. What I'm saying is, if you go according to history, Gene Chizik had a 5-19 record in a couple of years at Iowa State. He got the job over Turner Gill at Auburn. It delivered him a national championship, got him a new contract to the point where a buyout is worth what? Anywhere from $5 to $7 million? So what I'm saying to you is...
A quick point of order for Gene Chizik. He was regarded for years as the #1 defensive coordinator in college football at both Auburn and Texas.
I understand. And that's fair. But my point to you is, what have I often told you? You're a coordinator, you got a job to do. You're a head coach, you're a leader of men. Young men or men, but you're a leader. You're an overseer. And so to somebody of African American descent, what you're trying to say, not you, what they're trying to say is, you're questioning our ability to lead. You know where that takes us to, Skip? the quarterback position, the plight of the quarterback back in the 60s and the 70s.
I'd like to think that's changed.
No, it has.
Okay.
I'm not disputing.
All right.
I'm just talking about in the past. In other words, the things, people don't realize that when certain things are allowed, it harkens a community back to a time where they find something relatable, a common denominator to compare to the level of segregation, the level of prejudice, and things of that nature that, you know, is a part of our history.
Yep.
You're trying to move past it, but you know, like they sit there and they talk about in The Godfather, they keep bringing me back.
Okay.
They keep bringing me back. And that's what college football does, more so than any other sport in America. It brings you back to times you'd rather forget, because time and time and time again, we see things that happen that remind us of what they continue to do. They won't learn.
Okay.
They won't learn.
I completely appreciate that. Can I end with one fair point?
Sure.
On the white side here?
Yep.
There have been hundreds and hundreds of white head coaches who were one and done.
Right.
Because they just couldn't quite pull it off.
Got it.
I have a close friend named Gary Gibbs, who's now the defensive coordinator for Romeo Cornell in Kansas City.
Right.
6 years, the head coach at the University of Oklahoma, went 44, 23, and 2. Not bad.
Right.
Couldn't get another job.
Right.
Because they just said, not head coaching material.
Yeah.
Okay? It happens. Now it happens.
But nobody is saying it doesn't happen.
Okay.
We're simply saying is that if you see one white face after another getting opportunities to replace
I
them,
agree.
but there are no black folks getting
No black
opportunities, then that's a different ball game.
And you're saying just to have the opportunity.
Have the opportunity.
And when you get the opportunity, you have to seize it.
I agree with that.
Carpe diem.
Yep.
All right, you
I
guys, more First Take after the break. Stay with us, everyone.